April 1991 was the wettest month in recorded history in northeast Louisiana. Never before had as much rain fallen in a single month as fell in April. In fact, more rain fell in a day than normally falls all month long. This, coupled with a much wetter than normal winter, set the stage for a flood of epic proportions, one to rival the flood of 1932, 1978, Christmas 1982, and even the Great Flood of 27. 1991 takes its place on this dubious honor roll.
That time was just sweet. That time was just sweet.
In April 1991, almost 21 inches of rain fell in the Monroe, West Monroe area, nearly 4 times the normal amount of rainfall for the month. April's 20.71 inches of rain was the most ever recorded for this area, beating the old record set in July 1933 by better than 2 inches. And all that rain came at a time when area rivers and bayous were already swollen to capacity. From Monroe to the Mississippi line, a record 42 inches of rain would fall from January 1st to May 15th. The Ouachita River would match its highest ever recorded level, reaching a height unseen in 37 years. According to the Red Cross, over 11,000 families were forced to leave their homes and flee the rising floodwaters, almost 3,000 in Ouachita Parish alone. The damage estimates soared into the hundreds of millions of dollars, as more than half the parishes in the state and virtually every parish in northeast Louisiana were declared federal disaster areas. For most, it all began on April 29th.
Water in the Chauvin Basin will not seem like fun if it keeps rising. Residents in River Oaks and other areas will be the first to see major backwater flooding as the Ouachita River nears record levels.
We don't want to sound an alarm yet, but we are looking at more than likely a major flood on the river as well as all the tributaries.
Tensas Basin Levee Director John Stringer says the latest numbers are enough to cause concern. Without further rain, the Ouachita River will crest at 49.5 feet by May 10th. That's about 1 foot under the record set back in 1958. Levee crews are filling in the more than 50 gaps, trying to beat the rising waters. Officials say the levee system is in good shape right now, but more rain could force a nip-and-tuck fight.
We feel sure that we can contain most problems that will pop up, but there's going to be some problem areas, and at some point in time we may have to add to these levees.
Right now, all people can do is wait. After the weather clears, the water will still be with us. That's enough to force even ducks to seek higher ground.
Scenes like this one can be found throughout the parish. Water began seeping into these homes in the Westwood and Parkwood townhouses in West Monroe late Sunday night. By the next morning, residents awoke to find their neighborhoods almost completely underwater. West Monroe police worked throughout the night and morning to evacuate over 150 residents. I mean, are you frustrated, or what are your feelings?
Well, definitely frustrated and just feeling helpless and almost hopeless. Because so many things are going to be ruined, and yet we're in so much better shape than a lot of other people that, I have to be a little thankful for that.
Meanwhile, across the parish in Treasure Island, residents were working to keep their neighborhoods from being as severely damaged as the Westwood and Parkwood areas. However, a levee that broke during the morning hours isn't making it easy. Still, residents say the worst of times like these have brought out the best in people.
Everybody's pitched in. There's people that haven't been threatened, people that don't even live in the area that's been out here all day trying to help with sandbagging and all. It's times like this when everybody tries to help everybody.
Other areas of the parish that report flooding are the Town and Country area, the North Side Terrace area, the Tanglewood subdivision, and portions of North 7th Street near Thomas Road in West Monroe. For the last year, residents in Treasure Island have been working to have a structure built that would prevent such flooding. The permit to build came through Friday. Too late to do them any good this year. Thinking about moving out of here?
Oh yeah, definitely. And find me a high spot, if there is one in Ouachita Parish, I don't know.
Members of the Wilson family are trying to salvage their home. They woke up this morning to a flooded house. With no rainfall Monday night, the water was quite a surprise.
No warning. The water went down yesterday evening. We thought everything was fine. Then this morning we woke up, he was just here. Wasn't no warning at all.
Live right down the street. I'm helping them, and a lot of his family are coming and helping.
For those pitching in, though, they have their own battles to fight. Most homes along this South Ouachita Road are just inches away from being inundated with water. The situation is likely to worsen. Residents in South Ouachita Parish have more to fear than the anticipated weekend rain. The natural course for high waters in the northern part of the parish is to travel south, which means rain or shine, backwater flooding is their biggest threat. Some are preparing for the worst.
Water's coming, so we got to make some kind of preparation for it. Try to keep it out of the house.
Homer Powell is stocking up on these bags and sand available at emergency posts set up by the Ouachita Parish Public Works Department. Late Tuesday afternoon, these parish trucks began arriving with the much-needed sand. Residents say delivery of it is what's crucial.
People can't get out to get it. That's why we rely on Ouachita Parish.
And for those struggling with the floodwaters, there's one thought foremost on their mind.
Wondering what we're going to do. Yep, we're just trying to get everything we can saved and hopefully it'll go down soon where we can move back in.
But just when that will be is as unpredictable as the rising floodwaters.
The water's not rising as fast in the Chauvin Basin, but it is still inching up, enough for the last two families on Woodhaven Drive to give up the fight.
We sandbagged for 2 days and pumped water out with buckets, and we finally got some pumps in, but it keeps rising, so we're just going to go ahead and move out.
As the Griffins move out on May 1st, they think back 1 year ago. That's when they first moved into this house, now under siege. Town and Country is still fighting the water, this time with the help of Ouachita High football players. One group shovels sand, the other puts bags in place. Do you think you'll be able to keep going?
If it rises, 2 or 3, 4 more inches, I doubt it, But if we don't get no more than that, we may save it.
In Monroe, the River Oaks Chauvin Estates area is also fighting a rising tide. Mayor Bob Powell says the levees have been beefed up and the situation is under control as long as the rain stays out.
When those pumps are installed in the Chauvin area, they will reduce the water level about 1 inch every 24 hours. And we will have those in operation by Tuesday at the latest.
Still, homeowners are preparing for the worst, some with irrigation tubes for farming.
But we feel like by filling it up full of water, we've added at least a foot protection to our homes.
For now, sand and bags are available at the sanitation department for River Oaks residents, but not much more can be done except to dig in and wait. It will take a long time for some homes along Shinny Lake to dry out. Water is rising here much faster than in North Ouachita Parish, but residents had to fight boulders and floodwaters as fishermen were sending wakes into people's homes.
And if you have water coming in your home and you're sandbagging, you can imagine when someone comes by in a speedboat wide open, the effect that the waves would have.
Residents wouldn't stand for it, though. The lake was officially closed before noon.
We desperately need signs put up down here showing that it's closed. And also,
Janelle Pepper expects her home to become overtaken by the lake within a few days. The Pepper's backyard already has 8 feet of water in it.
We have to make jokes about it, because if you didn't joke about it, you spend a lot of time crying.
The flooding here in South Ouachita Parish will go on for some time yet, as the water from the north heads this way. Some residents are holding on. Clarence Whetstone's sandbag levee is working for now.
It's risen about an inch since daylight this morning. It's slower now than it was coming up about 2 inches in 12 hours.
Driving on these roads is also not easy. This filled load of lumber is just one cleanup job for this wrecker firm.
You can see the edge of the road, dropped the trailer off in the ditch, and it unloaded on it.
And even after floodwaters drop in the north, other parts of Ouachita Parish will remain wet for some time to come.
Do you expect this to get worse?
Yes, we do. That's the reason we're sandbagging. We're hearing rumors that the levee may break, and we're hearing rumors about 6 inches of rain in the Texas area headed this way. So it's about a half a block from us, so we're going to be sure.
Jack Williams says he never imagined he would have to build a wall of sandbags around his house in order to protect his property from flooding. But that's exactly what he and his family and friends are doing. Williams lives in the Deborah Drive area, which has been partially evacuated due to record-high waters. He says he requested sandbags from the city on Tuesday and has continued to try and get them with no success. So Jack Williams took the situation in his own hands.
We just had to decide what to do, and we been waiting it out all week. We've been trying to get sand out here all week and sandbags, and had any luck. So finally ordered the sand myself today, and just decided to do what we had to do.
There were other problems in that neighborhood as well. Resident Tom Grigson says one home on his street caught on fire after being struck by lightning.
That was kind of chaotic. 4 fire trucks running down the road. We didn't know what had happened first. We thought they were going down to pump the water because maybe the levee had broke. We keep hearing that, but so far things are going pretty good. I'm just wondering when these pumps are going to be here from Florida.
16 pumps are expected to arrive by Saturday, and many of those pumps will be used to get water out of the Chauvin Bayou. Parish officials say that process will be slow, but it will help. Until then, residents continue to do whatever it takes to save what is theirs.
Just like in many other places in the parish, water continues to rise over in the Shady Lane area. People living in the area say today's rain has caused the water level in their subdivision to rise even higher. And they say it doesn't look like it's going to stop there. That's why they're still stacking the sandbags.
Last night when I was out here, I had everything wrong according to a man from the parish, and he showed us how to stack them on an angle, which he says makes a tighter grip on the bags. And when that happens, it makes it much harder for the water to go in, and if you actually look at it, you can see that it actually looks a heck of a lot better than just one on top of the other.
Still, residents at the dry end of Shady Lane say they hope the water doesn't reach their homes. But as they say, it's better to be safe than sorry.
It'll have to come up 2 more feet before it floods. I think I'm about to go call old 6-inch rain, 6 to 8-inch rain will do it.
Sheriff's Office officials say the problem at Shady Lane is somewhat different than in some of the other flood-affected areas.
Shady Lane is, they're probably in a little worse situation than they are here because there's not a system of levees that actually protect the subdivision over there. And any attempt to retard the water is having to be done with makeshift levees.
These people have been working 24 hours a day just to keep their heads above water. And they say the thing they need most now is more help.
We've been going at it from daylight till dusk. And the only help that we've had has been from some neighbors in the community who have either given up or high enough to where they don't feel like they're a threat yet. And I'm a teacher, and my principal, I was blessed enough to have a principal who put together a team, he called it Stuck Waiters.
With more rain on the way, Shady Lane residents say they can use all the help they can get to make sure their homes don't go underwater.
Residents throughout Ouachita Parish are praying for sunshine as they fight to keep back the floodwaters threatening their homes. One of the worst hit neighborhoods is River Oaks, where a series of levees are saving about 100 homes, but they're not without some losses.
It's obvious they're going to keep damming this up. And of course all of the city drainage goes into the Bayou de Sirte, which comes in the Chauvin, which is in my front yard.
The worst flood disaster to hit the Arklamis in more than 3 decades is taking more than just a physical toll on property. as friends and families work around the clock to maintain the walls of sandbags, saving their homes.
I imagine we're about a foot or two away, actually, from the house, I think. But it still scares you. You still can't sleep at night. You still worry, and you're still uptight about it at all times, even though it hadn't seeped in.
In South Ouachita Parish, residents along Winsboro Road are using everything from boats to pumps to save their homes. Lance Reagan has spent his entire vacation sandbagging around his dad's home. So far, it's worked.
We got it pretty well secure right now, but if it keeps coming up, I don't know how many sandbags higher that we can go before it just tumbles.
The waters continue to rise, and so do the walls of sand. No one knows for sure how high it'll have to go. But for the residents trapped behind their makeshift levees, it's no longer a matter of the water level, it's a matter of time.
And for residents in town and country, their time ran out, as those living on West Elmwood were told to evacuate the area. The evacuation was ordered after a series of minor slides began letting water through a nearby levee. Volunteers were on hand to stack sandbags for extra support to keep that levee from breaking, but in other areas of the parish, levees have done little good. High waters have continued to threaten homes in Cypress Point, Tanglewood, and Treasure Island subdivisions, as well as the Moon Lake area near Gourd Bayou and on Parkwood Drive. And with more rain in the forecast, those floodwaters aren't expected to fall anytime soon. For 5 days and nights, residents in the Timber Lane area joined forces to sandbag along a levee that was already almost 8 feet high. It was a constant struggle to try and save their homes, but their efforts were met by tragedy as the earthen levee below the sandbags gave way, allowing thousands of gallons of water to pour into the neighborhood. Most residents had prepared for a possible emergency evacuation, and when the time came, they had only 15 minutes to get out. Left behind were a levee with a 20 to 30 feet gap and homes filled with water. Paul Mercer's home has over 4 feet of water in it.
My house is just total disaster. Water in the walls and the whole bit.
When do you think that they'll be allowing you to go back to try to salvage anything?
Nobody has been able to tell me that today, so I can't answer that.
As residents in the Timber Lane area try to salvage what little is left, another neighborhood, this one in the Moon Lake area, is continuing their battle against the floodwaters that threaten their homes. So far, residents and volunteers have been able to keep up with the rising waters, but it hasn't been easy.
We had tremendous rainfall Friday, and our levee blew out up on Louisiana 553, and the water was actually knocking people down. And everybody pitched in about 30 minutes, hauled 400 to 500 sandbags in about a 10-foot gap, or else we wouldn't be here today.
The sandbagging continues almost 24 hours a day, with all-terrain vehicles carrying the load. When people aren't filling sandbags, they are checking the levee for any weaknesses. So far, it's a cooperation that's paid off.
There's no way I can describe it. Just no way. Everybody's come together and done so well. People that you don't know and don't know you, they're there when you need a shoulder to lean on or a hand to help tie or shovel or bag or whatever, but it's been great.
It's in times like these when tragedy can happen that residents agree it's good to know they can count on each other.
Police jury workers are busy unloading parts of the pump system that officials say should help relieve flooding problems around the parish. The massive system is being assembled on the Chauvin levee, and officials say once the pumps are in operation, they'll start pumping water out of the Chauvin Basin and into the Ouachita River.
We're putting in a total of 8 different pumping units that range in size from 42-inch pumps down to 16-inch pumps. The combined capacity of all the units will be about 115,000 gallons per minute. They're very high velocity pumps and should make an impact on moving the water out of here.
Officials say with any luck, the pump system should be assembled and ready for operation by the middle of the week. They say these pumps should alleviate the flood problems throughout the city. Director of the Ouachita Parish Public Works, Tom Janway, says the location of the pump system was not a random choice.
He says that particular location was chosen because so many flooded areas are affected by backwater from the Chauvin Basin. Janway says that's why they're working so hard to get the system ready to work.
It's our major emphasis at this time is keeping, getting some of these pumps installed and up and running because it will benefit both the city of Monroe and the outlying areas in the parish.
The pump system unloading process hasn't been very easy, though. Police jury workers began bringing in trucks last night, but nightfall prevented the 18-wheelers from backing down the long levee road. The truck drivers themselves wouldn't back their loads down the long road, so police jury workers had to do that too. And last but not least, one truckload was so heavy that officials had to bring in a special crane to unload the cargo. Still, officials say they're doing their best to get that system set up by midweek. They say the sooner the pumps start working, the sooner flood victims will see a drop in the water level.
The hardest hit area in South Ouachita Parish is Gourd Bayou Road. There's only one way to get back to the houses. And those homes aren't much good right now. But for Jerry Thompson, Gourd Bayou Road is still home. He's been sandbagging since last Tuesday with the help of friends and co-workers. His house is about the last one that's dry right now.
We put in too much work to give it up now. We've moved everything we could up in the attic of the house, and we've moved a few things out. And if it takes us, we're just going to cut the electricity off and get in the boat and go out.
Water here is 4 to 5 feet deep in places, all from backwater flooding. The main problem for people living here in South Ouachita Parish is here at Bayou Lafourche, and it's a problem that won't go away anytime soon. Lafourche is overflowing, fed by a drainage system that's clogged from top to bottom. It's so high in the south end of Ouachita Parish, Highway 15 is closed near the Richland border to all traffic but the brave. The high water forced most people out days ago. Hugh Moore is lucky to have saved some of his belongings. There's 30 inches of water in his house.
A few tried to sandbag, but they couldn't save it. The water came up too fast.
It came up fast, all right, but the water here will be around for weeks. Until then, Gourd Bayou Road will be home to those who know how to swim.
Some type of dedication. What they're doing is letting you go in for 15 minutes, get personal items.
The word spread fast that residents evacuated from town and country could go in for personal belongings. Each evacuee had just 15 minutes, though, to grab the necessities and then leave again. John and Danica Gordon took most large items with them the other night, but they left most of the clothes behind.
They had let us out the first time, and we thought we were going to get to come walking back in the next day, and then they said you couldn't come back in even on foot.
We were kind of upset because we had a lot of shorts and socks and things to get back and forth to work.
15 minutes back home was a lifesaver for Ludi Scapuri. She too grabbed clothes as her and her husband have been forced to stay at the Red Cross shelter.
It was really bad. My family's from Texas, his family's from Ohio, so we don't have any place to stay.
Outside, work goes on to shore up the levees at Town and Country, which have caused problems. For now, though, 15 minutes back home is all the time these people will have. Meanwhile, crews are working around the clock to get all these pumps operating. So far, one pump has been operating for more than a day now. The others should be online by the weekend. Engineers hope to pump down the Chauvin Basin and ease flooding in several locations. Next to the pumps, River Oaks at Cuba Boulevard opened after Monroe City's pumps cleared much of the water.
We've been able to dry Cuba Boulevard enough for the people to get in and out. And right now we're just hoping we don't get enough rain to flood it again. We also have 3 pumps pumping to try to keep it dry so we can get emergency vehicles in and out.
Still, the Timber Lane area remains evacuated, as does this unprotected area along Deborah Drive. Little can help here until the Chauvin is lowered, which depends on these pumps and how much more rain comes our way. A line formed outside the doors of the Disaster Application Center, the first person waiting from 7 in the morning. But the process is the same no matter when you arrive. A series of stops and interviews to make sure you have the application filled out properly. And you don't have to be flooded out to find help. Donna Calhoun doesn't have water in her house so far, but
we live in town and country. We've been evacuated from our home.
On the other hand, Brenda Tillman lives on Oregon Trail, which was hit by the flash flood during the first severe storm. And now
we got windows up, letting water out and everything, and it's just real bad, and it's back.
The help here can come in the form of temporary housing right away. Then after an inspector can get into a flooded home, grants up to $11,000 are awarded. And for the time being, this center will remain open to help as long as there's a line of people.
This is South Ouachita Parish, an area that has officials very concerned. Officials with the Ouachita Parish Civil Defense say water rose in this area about 2 inches within the last 24 hours, and these residents' troubles are nowhere near over. The bayou is expected to increase even more within the next few days. Residents like Pat Brinson say they've never experienced anything like this.
No, never. And we've been on Garrett Road for about 18 years.
Even though keeping the water out has been difficult, these people say they have no intention of giving up.
Well, you know, we've worked a long time, worked hard. A lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say they're going to give up and just leave it, you know, but we're going to stay with it as long as we can.
Flooding continues to be a problem throughout Ouachita Parish. There is still water in the Deborah Drive, Town and Country, Cypress Point, and the North Park Terrace and Shady Lane areas. West Elmwood subdivision is still dry. However, the levee there is still being evaluated because of weak spots, and the neighborhood is still evacuated. Officials say the water has receded in Treasure Island and in some northern and southern portions of Shinny Lake.
Water on Garrett Road came up fast. Residents say it rose 4 inches in just a few hours. So neighbor began helping neighbor as each house was sandbagged and pumps were set up.
Everybody's been real good, you know, all the neighbors kind of pitched in and sandbagged and hope we don't flood, but if we do, all our furniture stuff will be in the dry anyway.
The Graves family is moving all their furniture into a tractor trailer parked outside. They've fought off the water so far, but say it's better to be safe than sorry. Nobody here is taking any chances. There's a truck in every yard. Every family has a truck for the furniture in case high water moves in. It's a new experience for most. Riley Wilkerson lived here for more than 20 years and never worried about floods.
Well, we've been at it since last Friday. But maybe it'll hold out.
For now, this curve of Garrett Road has been closed to all traffic as Young's Bayou and Bayou Lafourche keep backing in. No fun for man nor beast.
West Monroe officials are concerned about a sinkhole at the Black Bayou pumping station levee. They believe it's being caused by a hole in one of the pipes here, where crews are pumping concrete into the pipe to fill the hole. That should take care of the problem. But another levee is being built around the area as a precautionary measure. That's because in a worst-case scenario, the leak could result in a break in the levee and a call for an evacuation. But officials say the chances of that actually happening are very, very slim.
We hear a lot of rumors about people talking about evacuating the city. That's not necessary. We don't see any need to even discuss that at this point. We're confident we can contain this problem, and it's going to take us some time to do it. So people just need to be patient, be aware that we do have a problem. We're all working on it and confident we can correct it.
Residents across the parish in West Elmwood received some better news today. After being evacuated for almost a week, they were allowed back into their homes.
But the levees are still in critical shape, but we thought with a break in the weather and with no major slides on the levees in the past 24 hours that we'd go ahead and allow people back in.
Great. I mean, I think it's wonderful.
Why?
Well, we've been down here working all week just to save the levee, and it's better. I mean, we're in a motel. and we can be right here. If they need us, we're at a minute's notice.
The Drainage Board, along with the Sheriff's Department, will continue to monitor the levee here on a 24-hour basis. And although they are allowing residents back into West Elmwood now, they could be evacuated at a moment's notice if new weak spots are found.
From the looks of this picture, the Ouachita River appears to be a great place for a pleasant boat ride. It appears harmless, but the river is extremely dangerous right now. Not only could the strong currents pull a body under, but the weight created from water traffic causes major problems to the levee and homes that lie next to the river.
The main reason we're out here, though, is to prevent people from doing damage to personal property and also themselves.
The U.S. Coast Guard has been working closely with the Ouachita Parish Civil Defense to rescue flood victims trapped in their homes. And the Guard has also added another responsibility, patrolling the Ouachita River. While the river looks peaceful, the tranquility of it is deceptive. The Coast Guard has marked off a 12-mile safety zone that is close to traffic, and their patrol could last for at least 2 more weeks. The Coast Guard has jurisdiction over all navigable waters. Therefore, it is authorized to close the river to all traffic, which is exactly what it did earlier this week.
Being up here in North Louisiana, this is, unless a tornado hits or something, this is probably would be the worst thing that happens that I can think of right on top of my head.
Riding through the streets of the West Elmwood area, it's obvious that many homes are still deserted. The few residents who are there say they're still concerned about the possibility of flooding. Kim Holloway says she's not so sure moving back home is such a good idea, since waters around the area are still high and threatening.
We say, okay, if they still let us here and we're out working, and it floods, what are we supposed to do? We still have our main articles in here. And then if you have pets, you brought them back and you're going to leave your pet here all day and go to work. So, I know a pet's immaterial to what other people has lost, and we're not even suffering compared to that. But you just don't want to lose them.
Residents have been told to keep a suitcase packed, just in case of such an emergency. Still, some residents say it's worth that much just to be home. They say the little things, like sleeping in their own beds, make life seem almost normal again.
Just trying to make it. I have 5 dogs and 3 cats, and we were at my mother's, and it was not very much fun for her or me, But we just came back kind of temporary, to be, ready to leave in a hurry because they said we may have to.
Residents on Northgate Drive in North Monroe are beginning to see the fruits of their labor pay off. The subdivision has been underwater for more than a week due to a break in the levee that surrounds the 28 homes there. Those waters downed the pumps that were working to keep flooding out of the neighborhood, but Northgate residents refused to be set back. 2 new pumps were brought in, and resident Joyce Parkerson says one of her neighbors instigated the project that has helped to dry up the neighborhood.
We came up with the idea that if we could get down under the water and start building the levee up with the sandbags from underneath the water and bring it up above the water, then we might have a chance of getting the water pumped over. But otherwise, we were just going to have this stagnant water in here until the water went down.
Northgate's made a lot of progress. They have some pumps going and so forth, and the water's really dropping relatively fast. The rest of the areas, town and country area, they're more or less holding up.
The water has gone down at least 4 feet, and residents have begun to return home. The task at hand for them is cleaning up. In spite of the disaster and the prospect that it could happen again, residents say they don't want to relocate.
We've been here for about 17 years now, and this is the first time, and we feel like that there are an awful lot of other places here that have gotten it too, that no matter where we go, we always stand this chance, so we'll stay here.
Monroe, West Monroe, and Ouachita Parish were by no means the only areas hit hard by the floodwaters. Virtually every parish in northeast Louisiana experienced flooding. 18 were severe enough to merit federal disaster declarations.
From the air, Union Parish is struggling to keep its head above water. Sheriff Bob Buckley says anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 homes have been flooded, and officials expect the waters surrounding Lake D'Arbonne to rise another 2 feet. Buckley says hundreds of people have been evacuated from the area, and still more are completely cut off. Power has also been turned off to flooded homes in an effort to prevent fires. Miraculously, though, no injuries have been reported. As federal and state disaster officials inspect much of Union Parish, hundreds are still not able to return home after the worst flood in the Darbone River Basin since the lake was built. Original damage estimates have been discarded now that the rains have stopped, and officials can now take a look.
I flew over yesterday, and we estimated a very conservative estimate of 1,500, 2,000 homes that are flooded, and today I would say there's 3,000 or better. There's no numbers that I can give you on the number of people displaced.
Electric power and gas, as well as phone services, are out for at least a week. Many of the flooded homes are in exclusive areas of the lake, which could push the damage price tag into the tens of millions.
How much water do you think is in Bear Creek at the home?
Bear Creek? Some of them ain't that much, like the whole house is going.
During this time of emergency in Union Parish, the sheriff's office is constantly fielding calls from citizens worried about rumors.
These rumors are causing a lot of fear for the public out there and a lot of problems for us, but any information we will get out to the public.
One of the big concerns here is this dam which separates Lake Darbone and Bayou Darbone. The current is pouring over the spillway so fast that you can feel the entire structure vibrating. But project engineers say it's rock solid.
For this time, we see no problem with it whatsoever. It's very structurally sound. We see no real problems anywhere through the structure or the embankments on either end.
Meanwhile, back in Farmerville, the housing problem for those displaced by the flood has been relieved somewhat by this emergency shelter at the First Baptist Church. But despair is evident, as some have lost everything they own. But luckily, Union Parish is not down. At this point, no injuries or deaths have been reported as a result of the flooding, something Sheriff Buckley calls a miracle considering the circumstances. In Morehouse Parish, travel routes are also cut off to areas north and south. Flood victims are taking what belongings they can carry out of their homes. Automobiles stranded along Highway 165 are an ominous sight to those traveling. Some couldn't keep the waters out.
Get tired of it after a while. I mean, you get fight it, and you just losing battles.
Morehouse Sheriff officials say every available officer is working to evacuate flood victims. Several hundred have already been taken out.
At first glance, it may seem that Rufus Martin is taking a leisurely boat ride on the river, but actually he's crossing flooded streets to take basic necessities back to his home, which is surrounded by water.
Well, it's been pretty rough. You can see that now, trying to get out and in. Everything we want, we had to come out to get drinking water, come out to get us food, and everything else.
Martin's home is about one of 35 that is still affected by flooding, a dramatic decrease from the 150 households that were flooded just last week. That's about half the homes in this community. The water also covered the city's water supply system, leaving them without running water for 2 weeks. Running water has now been restored through a neighboring system, but residents still have to boil their water before drinking it. That is until health department tests show that it's okay to drink the water directly from the faucet.
And it's probably going to be another 3 to 4 weeks before we can get our town system back online, because once the water does totally recede off of the pumps and the motors, then they'll have to be removed and sent off to be repaired.
In the meantime, residents are receiving some assistance from private companies and individuals who have bought bottled water for them.
This trip marks a painful farewell from home for the Townsend family. The floodwaters are making it impossible for them to travel to and from home, and the water is still rising. Does this make you sad to leave your house?
Sad. Yes, ma'am. It makes you sad. The ones are old, they just cry. It's the way I feel. You have to leave your home, that's too much of it. I don't like it.
The Townsends are flood victims in Catahoula Parish, population 12,500. Sheriff Sonny Jackson says well over 1,000 households have been evacuated, and he expects that number to rise considerably.
I've been telling them for about 10 days to get to higher ground, because it's coming. This flood is different than
ones that we had in 73 and 53, because it's not coming from the Mississippi River. This is coming from the Ouachita and Tensas, and it's going to be different.
Catahoula Parish is surrounded by 4 rivers. All of them continue to swell, spilling over into acres upon acres of what used to be dry land. This gate that you see here behind me is the entrance to a levee which normally stands about 10 feet from the ground. And if all this water weren't here, you would see what is normally a bean field. The parish is hoping to obtain federal aid by being declared a national disaster area. If those monies are granted, residents here can begin to pick up the pieces, and most will probably pick up where they left off.
Until it's all paid for, I think, Relocate it now would be a hard problem for me.
And so people continue to work feverishly to save what is theirs. That is, if nature hasn't already claimed it.
I'm going home. That's home. I told my wife, I said, you know, if we could sell this house and just build us a modest little home, be easy to heat and cool, she said, I'm going to live here till I die.
Enterprise resident Glenn Roark is going home, but he'll have to go by boat. And when he gets there, he'll have no telephone or running water.
I got a rain bottle, I catch water and take a bath. And I was carrying my drinking water in.
This sort of primitive living has been the norm for about 3 weeks in Enterprise, a rural community of about 200 in Catahoula Parish. The area is almost completely underwater due to flooding from the Beth and Ouachita rivers. The high water started to fall only 4 days ago. So now the residents can only wait patiently and hope they'll see dry land again soon.
Just as soon as the water gets below our levee, we're going to pump the water out from around the water system. And then we'll try to fix the pump so we can at least have water. We're looking at another week before the water, at the rate it's falling, gets that low.
Bartmus, who has lived in Enterprise for more than 20 years, says he saw families pack up and leave in the floods of 73 and 83. But this flood has been more devastating to Enterprise than the previous 2. Bartmus says if people leave the community permanently as in the past, the economy could be profoundly affected. But so far, he says residents are sticking it out.
People get aggravated when they don't have water faster than when they don't have other facilities. And the health department wouldn't let us put a untested well on the water system, and that upset some people, but you can't blame the health department. They're just doing their job.
Nearly everyone is doing their job in Enterprise to restore some normalcy to the quiet community. Bartmus says only 25% of the residents here in Enterprise have remained through the flooding, but those people have weathered the worst and bring new meaning to the word survival.
Officials from FEMA, Emergency Preparedness, and the Franklin Parish Civil Defense got a first-hand look at the flood situation in the area. Assistant Director of Franklin Parish Civil Defense, J.W. Dean, says what they saw was water everywhere.
What we expected, water's everywhere, especially in the western part of the parish and the south part, along 562 in the Fort Necessity Extension area, along Turkey Creek or King's Dump as we call it here. We've got some major problems in those areas. In the eastern part of the parish, along By Mason, we've had some major problems there, but it looks like water's beginning to drop a little there in some places. But our critical point right now is in the western part of the parish and along the south part of the parish.
The area around the Beth River at Liddyville is one of those critical areas. Water here is up to 15 feet in some places. This is backwater from the Beth River. Most of the people in this area have already given up and moved out. They've gone to higher ground. But not the Hatton family. Their home is surrounded by high waters, but they haven't taken on any because they've built what looks like a fort around their house. L.R. Hatton says the sandbag creation is the result of many people's hard work.
And it takes a lot of people, but they've been here every day. They've been mighty faithful.
Helping out is not something that's been easy to do for those trying to help the Hattons. Sandbags have to be transported 4 miles by boat.
It was just a tremendous effort. People, neighbors, they all had trucks. They transported it over. We loaded it into the boats, brought them here, unloaded. We've been fighting insects, water, uncomfortable conditions, and it's just been a labor of love.
Other areas of the parish are flooded as well, and parish officials say they expect to hear from FEMA officials within a couple of days.
They say the only thing that can help improve the situation here is for FEMA officials to confirm what they already know. Franklin Parish needs emergency disaster assistance. Caldwell Parish, like so many other Northeast Louisiana parishes, has an extensive flooding problem. Parish Civil Defense Director Rube Bates sums up the situation like this.
Most of the area that's flooded would be in the Hebert and Lafourche Lake area, all the way up to all up Beth River and Lafourche Canal from Highway 15. And that's where most of the flood is, but it's backing up into the along 165 area right now, all between 165 and the levee.
As floodwaters continue to rise here in Caldwell Parish, more and more homes are being claimed by them. But residents are trying to keep up the fight. That is, until they no longer can. Truman and Doreen Poole fought the rising waters until early this afternoon, when the immense water pressure finally broke through their sandbag levee, flooding the home away from home that they built themselves.
We've been fighting it since last Thursday, sandbagging. We had a lot of friends that come in and helped us and worked real hard to try to save it. But when he came out today to get me, when we pulled up there, the whole thing just collapsed and all. So we've done the best we could. That's all I can say.
And what are you going to do now?
We're going to build that. We'll fix it. We fixed it once, so we can sure fix it again.
Homeowners were not the only ones affected by the flood, Northeast Louisiana being largely a rural agricultural area with thousands and thousands of acres of farmland underwater in April and May '91. The high water destroyed what crops were in the fields, and it prevented farmers who hadn't planted from getting into their fields.
The flood of 1991 is causing some big problems for North Louisiana farmers. Over 100,000 acres of cotton, milo, rice, oats, and catfish ponds have been destroyed already, and hundreds of thousands of more acres are underwater.
Basically, all the cropland in the entire northern section of the state is either inundated with water or it's reached its saturation point, and as a result, very few acres of cotton have been planted and very little rice.
Reports released this month show that Morehouse Parish had the largest amount of cropland flooded, with approximately 170,000 acres underwater, followed by Catahoula Parish, Richland, Madison, East Carroll, West Carroll, Ouachita, Caldwell, Natchitoches, and Franklin parishes. To make matters worse, acres that are not flooded are so saturated it's almost impossible for farmers to get into fields that should have been already planted by now.
After about May 20th, we start experiencing yield declines on cotton. The same situation holds true for rice. When we get toward the end of May, you can expect that yields will be cut substantially, and you can also suspect, particularly on cotton, that we'll have a substantial problem with insect control, and the crop's going to be more expensive.
This is Lake D'Arbonne, the source of flooding for many farmers here in Union Parish. So far, farm income loss is estimated to be about $100 million, and that figure is expected to increase. Giesler says that's sure to have a depressing effect on this area's economy. But just how much of an effect, no one will know until even more damage assessments are made.
Agricultural specialists say floodwaters that stand in fields for several days are not as hazardous to crops as floodwaters that storm the land with swift currents. That's exactly what ag agent Jay Stevens says happened on many farms like Eddie Moore's in Morehouse Parish.
Water came out of Bartholomew on the north side of the parish and picked up speed, gained speed as it came into this old break over here called Sisson Break, which is on the north side of this farm that Eddie Moore is farming. And once it broke over the ridge, the water was moving very swiftly, and in doing so, it just eroded this soil. I mean, it took the topsoil off of probably, as Eddie has said, 10 acres out of 25 is lacking the topsoil. And when you look at the field, you can tell what's going on.
The topsoil is the productive soil when it comes to planting crops. It contains the fertilizer and organic matter needed for healthy growth. It also takes endless hours to prepare. Many farmers began preparing their fields in March in anticipation of planting by mid-April, until the flood came.
I never have seen it this bad. I really never have. These are real, what you call gully erosion. And it's real, and it's serious. And it's serious not only on this farm, but on some other farms in the parish as well.
Erosion is serious because it cuts production back considerably. The eroded land must be leveled, and the planting process has to begin again from scratch. And that costs money.
The floodwaters, of course, did finally recede, though many homes had water in them for as long as a month. Residents faced the long, hard task of rebuilding both their homes and their lives.
Penny Moser and her family had to evacuate their home during the flood. For the past 4 days, she's been trying to get it cleaned up so that they can move back in. It's been a very long and grueling process because what she returned to was not a pretty sight.
We thought we'd only get about 6 inches, so when we walked back in and saw it was 18, we were upset because we lost a lot more furniture than we anticipated we would lose. Well, you have frogs and you have fish, and after the floodwaters went out this time, we had lots of worms, and they're all on top of each other, like about the size of a softball or a baseball. I guess they're trying to survive.
Even though Moser doesn't want the creatures in her home, she does empathize with them.
Well, they're just trying to survive too. You know, you can't be too upset with them. They're trying to get to higher ground. It just happens to be inside my house rather than outside my house.
Moser and her family have been flooded 3 times. She says that doesn't make it any easier. But this time she has put things into perspective and realized what's really important.
So many other things are going on that are worse. When I look at the paper and see Bangladesh or something like that, then you can put it in perspective and just be thankful that you still have a house and the family's all together and we're all safe.
Penny Kaye, who lives down the street, was forced to take up residence in her motorhome during the flood. And even though she started to clean up her home, she's hesitant because she fears the worst may not be over.
It is an agonizing situation, and we're afraid to leave for a long period of time because you just never know when the levee out here could break.
Both women say since they've been through this before, they know it will all eventually be over. And it's that knowledge that's helping them get through this very difficult time.
The sandbags are beginning to come down in parts of Monroe as floodwaters move out. Residents are coming home, assessing damages, and trying to get their lives back on track.
Well, we know we need to, get in there and clean up and make repairs and all, and we're just going to have to make the best of it. That's all you can do in a situation like that. The walls are mere doing, the carpet is. I mean, we have no more carpet right now. Right now we're on the slab, just on the platform now. And most of the walls are just like, we're sure the installation is gone and we're going to have to replace that.
One aspect of the cleanup that you can't understand unless you're here is the almost unbearable smell. Residents are not only having to deal with the mess, but the stench as well.
Odor was unbearable. I mean, it was just like, I can't even describe it. Like the smell of snakes and fish and all. I mean, it's just, I can't even describe it, how the odor was, inside and out. More outside than inside, because we're really working on the inside, trying to get that odor out using different types of disinfectant cleaners and things like that.
It will be a summer of working underground for many of Monroe's public works employees. Almost 100 busted sewer and storm water lines have already been found, and there's no end in sight.
We're finding 2 to 3 cave-ins each day. New ones will pop up every day. As the water table goes down, we'll find quite a few. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg on cave-ins.
Above ground is a large job of picking up the debris and sandbags left over from the floods. This alone will take Monroe crews some 3 weeks of work, and although the crews have taken a lot of complaints lately, not all homeowners are upset.
In this whole mess, I found the men that work for him most cooperative. They did their job. when they needed some help with the levees and building the sandbags in the front. They were very helpful, and I appreciate what they did.
The cleanup outside, though, is much easier than what's happening inside these homes. Private contractors and homeowners are busy cleaning on the inside. Just a few inches of water is enough to force a major rebuilding.
Yeah, you have to repaint it, float and sheetrock and everything back out and repaint it the way it was.
It will take a lot of manpower to put everything back the way it was. Monroe officials are promising to do what's necessary to restore the city, making for a long, hot summer for these workers.
As disaster is wont to do, the flood of 1991 often brought out the best in all of us. Neighbor helped neighbor, and even strangers pitched in to build sandbag levees in an effort to ward off the ever-rising flood waters. The Red Cross alone spent an estimated $7 million in relief efforts. Just in meals, they served over 88,000 to flood victims and workers. Countless other people and organizations lent a helping hand.
Volunteers abound as hundreds try to defend their homes from rising floodwaters. And for those who've already had water invade their homes, volunteers wait to give them some help as well. Chapter manager of the Ouachita Parish Red Cross, Ann Patton, says the community effort during this flood crisis has been overwhelming.
We've had a very wonderful response. We will continue to need volunteers. Saturday and Sunday, we trained 52 volunteers just to do casework. The casework process is a very entailed process, and it will go on several weeks in this community. Today, we are training 20 additional people to do casework.
Other volunteers are giving their time and energy to yet another immediate cause, trying to keep floodwaters out of people's homes. Sandbaggers and Red Cross volunteers alike say they're glad to be able to help out. And their reasoning is quite simple. They say it just feels right.
It makes me feel real good to know that I'm actually able to help somebody.
The only reason I'm out here is to save the place. We heard on the news at 5 o'clock this morning that it broke, and we came out then. We just want to get it. The water's already draining back. They filled in the hole, and the more bags we do, the better chance it stands.
If we can help out these people and they can save their house and they can have a home to stay in tomorrow night, well, we feel like we helped them out a little bit and we're doing a little something for this community.
Victims of the flood do realize just how important those volunteers are to the effort to save their homes. And the volunteers have certainly not gone unappreciated.
Everybody's come together and done so well. People that you don't know and don't know you either there when you need a shoulder to lean on or a hand to help tie or shovel or bag or whatever, but it's been great.
Where exactly the flood of 1991 fits into the annals of time is unclear right now, and while it may be little solace to someone who lost a home to the floodwaters, the people of northeast Louisiana in April and May of 1991 can perhaps take some comfort in knowing that they truly lived through a piece of history.
What has happened down here is the wind have changed. Clouds roll in from the north and it start to rain. Rained real hard and it rained for a real long time. 6 feet of water in the streets of Evangeline.
van cam.
Of course, it ain't a couple inches deep. That's that radio station there. They bailed out there.
Magic 106. We're here whenever you want to relax and enjoy your favorite song played all in a row, like Anita Baker giving you the best that I got. 4 tops, I can't help